Hello and welcome to my review of the DX Winner 2 from Dynamic X, the 2 DOF or Direction of Freedom motion seat. I've had this now for a few weeks. I was one of the very first early adopters on the Kickstarter, and I'd just like to give some opinions for myself after having used it for a few weeks now. I would like to point out I am a very average middle-aged sim racing man. I have been sim racing for over 20 years though now. Started off with consoles, Xbox, PlayStation, and then about 10 years ago moved into the PC world when the original Assetto Corsa came out. Built my first PC, and then moved on significantly since then. Currently use Fanatec direct drive wheel, Fanatec version 3 pedals, um, with an aluminium rig, and then obviously very recently bought the DX Winner 2 motion seat. I have had experience of driving real race cars. I've driven a Renault Clio, a Golf GTI, and also a BMW, so rear-wheel drive as well, around the Nürburgring Nordschleife on a Touristfahrten. Cars from Ring Freaks, which, if anyone does know about them, are real-life racing cars adapted for um, a main series over there, but they also rent them out to the general public. Um, I've also drive cars and vans fairly quickly on UK roads on a daily basis, working for the emergency services. So I feel I have some kind of understanding of how motion works, how you should feel in vehicles, and then again, I will obviously apply that to how I feel the DX Winner 2 deals with that. And my main aim from this video is to give you a bit of an understanding of what I do like about this, what I don't like, and perhaps if there's any improvements I might suggest for future updates. So looking at the Dynamic X website first of all, it does obviously display all the marketing talk. It talks about the force feedback, the fidelity, how easy it is to plug and play. There's basically a single USB lead and a power lead. Um, Statistics there, obviously 2 directions of freedom, up to 10 degrees movement, forward, backwards, left and right. After discussions on the Discord, it's been confirmed actually that the supplied firmware initially does actually only use 5 degrees. There is an updated firmware should people want it to utilize the full 10 degrees of motion, although apparently that's been advised by Dynamic X themselves. That's probably better for flying, with cars and certainly racing. 5 degrees is ideal. Again, I'm absolutely no motion expert. I've stuck with the original firmware. 5 degrees at the moment for me seems perfectly adequate. Although I do know a couple of people, as I say on a Discord, have requested and have started utilising up to 10 degrees. Rated and peak torque of 40 Newton meters and 120 Newton meters respectively. And then the weight there, which I believe has also been discussed and updated. Apparently, it's up to 150 kilograms, including yourself, obviously, and any seat, etc., that's added to the platform. Moving on, there's a picture of the actual quasi-drive motors in action. It does show how quick they are compared to, in inverted commas, traditional actuators. They are bigger, apparently, being used actually in the seat motion system itself. We then have further statistics, obviously the size, the weight of the product. I will say 17 kilos. It's not particularly heavy. I was quite easy. It was quite easy, basically taking it from the delivery driver, walking upstairs with it, and putting it into my upstairs sim room. Noise level, again, I will go into that in more detail a bit further in the video. but suffice to say it's not very noisy at all. Some examples of it being utilised in different sim rigs, another one there. Um, Examples of games that it's compatible with. Basically, anything that can be utilised with SimHub will work absolutely fine. SimHub is the main telemetry system used. I've been using it, and yeah, an awful lot of configuration is available with SimHub, as I'm sure anyone who does have motion experience is fully aware of. Okay, if we go to the support page, there is obviously the user manual that you can download, the firmware, which obviously will be updated as and when Dynamic X want to release public firmware updates, and also the files for SimHub setup, and how to connect it to SimHub. If we then look at the shop, obviously the product there. It's still available to buy. You can buy direct from the website now. As I say, I was one of the first 10 that backed this on Kickstarter. I got a very good price, $799. Was probably the main reason that I actually decided to go for this. I understand all the risks of Kickstarter. I know a couple of people that in the Discord were discussing it when it was first launched. People who had backed it were being advised that they were just going to take your money and run. I've actually had that happen to myself. If anyone knows of Feel VR, their direct drive wheel and pedals um, never materialised, although I believe they're still trying to sell some pedals now. Anyway, the DX Winner 2 seat mover is available to buy direct from the website now, with PayPal, so I think that's good, and offers some protection for anyone who doubts. Available in 110 volts and 220 volts, obviously depending on your country's electrics. This is something I just want to quickly talk about as well. When the Kickstarter backers, including myself, obviously paid for it, the only available option was sea freight. Obviously, that put extra time onto the delivery. There was concern over customs import duty. All I will say is that I basically paid my equivalent of $799, plus I think it was another $90 for delivery, and that was it. Nothing else was added. It turned up delivered via DPD, just as anything that you buy from kind of overseas would do. They do have this Express Air option now. As you can see, it says 10 days delivery. That doesn't include potential duties and taxes into whichever country you're, obviously purchasing it for. So just to give you an idea of the actual cost, as of today's exchange rate, $1,299 is the equivalent to 1,100 euros, and Great British pounds, just over 960. So still under £1,000 for the UK buyers, which I think, compared to some of its competitors, is one of the main selling points. Moving back to the buying page, there is a bit more information. This has been updated recently again. They seem to be doing continuous updates to all their marketing. So that's good to see as well. Again, more statistics there, more videos telling you. Now this is again something that's quite interesting. I didn't even realise that this seat mover had built-in haptics. There was no mention of it on the Kickstarter. There was no mention of it when it was released and whilst we were waiting for it to be delivered. Even in the instructions, there didn't appear, if I'm remembering correctly, to be any mention of haptics at all. And I remember discussing with someone, one of their competitors, Cubic Systems, have also recently released a seat mover at almost 3 times the price. And I think I actually stated, wow, is it going to be worth that much more just because it has built-in haptics? I mean, I actually run a dual base shaker setup, which gives me everything I need. I think it's a good system, but it's also pleasing to know that this seat mover does have haptics built in. I don't think Dynamic X helped themselves really. The initial SimHub files for the motion are very, very conservative. It basically only has pitch and roll, nothing else added, no haptics. And when I first used it, actually, I'll go into a bit more detail when I talk about and show the seat in more obvious motion. But again, I think Dynamic X have really undersold this to start with. Haptics basically is built in, does work, and is quite effective. And that's all I'll say on that at the moment. Specs again, I can see they actually state now that it's to 5 degrees with the standard firmware, but there is a custom firmware available for people who request it, which does utilise, as I say, the full 10 degrees of motion. I see they've also now stating that sim tools can be used for telemetry. Again, when this was first launched and throughout all the waiting period, SimHub was the only piece of software that was kind of talked about and advised to be used. I use SimHub, as I say, and have no problems with it. But I guess it's good to know that there's another option for people who want to use sim tools. And just moving further down the page, obviously advising what it can be used for: racing simulators, truck, flight, etc. So here's the effects that can be used. I won't go through them. I'm sure anyone who has got motion experience or who's interested in it would have some idea, but that clearly shows what's available with this synth mover. Okay, so what actually comes in the box? Unfortunately, I didn't do an unboxing video, but did take some photos as I took everything out. Obviously, you've got the seat mover itself, and also you have 2 aluminium profile bars which can be used to attach, I guess, any kind of size of seat if they don't line up with the actual holes in the seat mover itself. Instruction booklet, guarantee, etc. There's also 2 sets, so 4 in total, of brackets, which can be attached to aluminium profile or any other type of metal rig, and obviously a bag of screws, nuts and bolts. Okay, so on to some actual footage of the seat mover in motion. I do just want to clarify that the 2 videos right at the very start of this, when I shot those, I was using the initial kind of SimHub profile that, as I say, was very conservative. It doesn't really show certainly full range of motion, and some of the effects that were available. And people have commented that it doesn't kind of tie up with moving the wheel. However, having looked a little bit deeper when I first got into this, someone on the Discord very kindly shared a profile that they were using. They openly admitted it was really primarily for kind of truck simulators and flying, and they do a little bit of sim racing as well. So it's kind of a one for all. But I just wanted to show this as it kind of shows the excessiveness really of motion available. I've since tweaked quite a lot. Movement isn't as obvious. I don't think there's any point in showing a video of a profile I'm using at the moment. And I would say that it's a little bit like base shakers really. I think sometimes less is more. Similar to VR, you can't really kind of appreciate what's going on without actually sitting in the seat and feeling it. You don't need excessive movement, or certainly I don't think you need excessive movement. It's there to give you cues, to give you a bit of idea of what's going on. Can certainly feel an awful lot of what's going on in the car. You know, the obvious stuff, moving forward under braking, going backwards under acceleration, moving left and right through corners is all pretty obvious, but there are some other things going on as well. I can really kind of feel the back end of this BMW M2 sliding out, certainly down that corner. Moving down hills, going up into hills, it's very obvious, but with the profile here, it is excessive, and you can see it kind of shows itself in lap times. Again, one of the questions that has been asked a few times: does this motion seat affect lap times? Is it making you slower? Again, I've not really had enough seat time, for want of a better phrase. Work and real life, as always, gets in the way. Um, but I have certainly gone quicker than some previous times, possibly because just driving a bit more. Um, but no, the feeling through the seat is awesome. You can feel an awful lot more than certainly a static rig. Now, I'm not saying it's anything like a three even, or a four or a six DOF system where the whole rig's moving, but for the cost, for the upgrade that it's done for me, and most importantly the enjoyment. I think it's a great thing, and I really am enjoying it.
Watch your speed. Box in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Box now.
So looking again from the front view, may just give a bit of an idea of how much motion is actually happening, how much I'm being kind of thrown about in the seat. Something else I just wanted to touch on, again, people have asked about latency. Appears that the seat doesn't kind of act to exactly what the wheel's doing. And again, I'm no expert. I can only kind of give my own thoughts on it. Again, what I would say is there is, I think, still some smoothing been applied on this profile, so you can kind of adjust smoothing the gain for each motion, which then has a direct effect on how quickly or kind of how aggressively movements happen. What I will say is, obviously, you can see I race in VR. Latency is kind of worst enemy, and again, I can only go by what I'm feeling. What I do and see on screen appears to happen, virtually instantaneously within the seat. There's no noticeable lag or delay, and again, it's much like how I would expect the seat to react. Driving in real life, both on the roads and on the very limited racetrack experience I've had. Um, Again, I can only kind of quantify it by there just doesn't seem to be any. I haven't even started using motion compensation for VR yet. I don't think I need to. It just works. And again, I at the moment there's nothing kind of negative I can say about the actual experience with regards to the seat moving and motion itself. Okay, so kind of finally, another question that's been asked quite a bit is the noise that potentially might be obvious from the seat mover. Um, I will leave just the sound from the camera here. Bear in mind it was on the desk literally above my PC. I have amplified it as well, so you can clearly hear the PC fans from the seat mover itself, pedals and shifters clicking. But honestly, there is literally no sound made from the seat movement itself. Okay, so I did just want to add an extra kind of section into this video just regarding Stream Dock use. I've had a couple of people ask me how I use it for integrating into sim racing in general, but also I've started using it specifically within SimHub for motion. It makes it much easier to kind of adjust stuff on the fly as I do racing
Radio
VR.
check.
So we just load up the sim now as if I was going to go in a race. Obviously within SimHub itself, under the motion section, these are all the parameters that you can change. Depending on what motion device you have, it will only show apparently what's available with regards to your particular motion. So with the seat mover, we've got normal pitch and roll and the others. Obviously the haptics section as well. Now this is just a very rough profile that I've been messing around with, just making sure all the buttons work on the Stream Dock. Moving across here, I've got all the sections set up. So actually, what I can also do is it's easier when I'm actually in VR and racing, just pull up a little smaller window with everything on there. But you can obviously adjust things individually, have separate sections that you don't want. So ABS, audio to haptics, I wouldn't want on the seat mover, but everything else is set up to adjust on the fly, as I say. So I have dials here for pitch. It will just change the pitch up and down depending on which way I turn the knob, and then smoothing I've got on the button, so I can increase the smoothing, decrease it, and the same for every kind of variable. So that just, as I say, makes it much easier for me to adjust on the fly whilst in VR. And finally, just to kind of finish off with now, I said I'd give opinions on what I liked about the DX Winner 2 and what I didn't like. If I start off with dislikes, to be honest, there's not many of them. I guess overall appearance of it, initially I thought it looks quite basic, a bit boxy, and I appreciate that a lot of sim racers do take great pride in their sim rigs and their sim rooms, quite rightly so. I guess I'm a bit more of a substance over style type of guy, and just want it to work effectively without necessarily looking amazing. I do like to keep a bit of a clean sim rig, especially with cable management, etc. And I do need to clean up around. As you can see, there's a lot of bits and dirt and dust still around. I have, however, kind of grown to like its kind of simplistic style. I think it blends in quite well. It's also got other half approval, so it doesn't look too out of place where it is. One of the most annoying things about it for me personally was the position of the on-off button. While it's particularly sitting in my rig, and the way I've mounted it front and back rather than the initially suggested side mounts, it means it's a little bit tight getting into it. Another thing that's slightly annoying, there's no light or indication when the unit is on. I have, however, recently added a surge protector extension lead, so it's plugged into that right next to the on-off switch, so I can turn it off at the mains, and obviously again back on, and then use the button to turn the device on at the same time. Probably the only last or other kind of annoyance I have with it, and it's just obviously the to do with the mechanics of it and the way it's made. When you do power it off, there is no resistance. It simply just kind of collapses, and the seat does move back fairly quickly. Another slight annoyance, although I guess it's inherent with all of these types of devices, it obviously does raise your seating position. This resulted in me having to kind of really rejiggle my whole position on the rig. I moved pedals back, slightly up, steering wheel mounting had to be moved as well. A lot of kind of faffing around trying to get a good position really once my actual chair was on the seat mover itself. But again, that's going to be the same with any device like this. The actual mounting of the seat mover itself, although fairly straightforward, ideally to either an aluminium profile rig or other similar rigs that you can screw into the side of it. The angled mounting brackets that attach underneath the unit can be done either at the side or to the front and back, as I have. The holes, however, used to put the bolts through and then obviously attached to the nuts, are only M5 size. Typically, I believe, such as my rig, most of them are M8. Although you can actually attach literally 12 bolts each side, the fact that they are a bit smaller than the norm, when I originally did have it attached to each side, under heavy braking, it simply wasn't enough to kind of limit the front of the unit moving upwards. That was resolved by, as I say, now mounting front and back with my rig actually sitting on top of the mounting bracket, so it is rock solid now. I believe someone else has already kind of drilled out the holes to M8 size, and also the actual kind of bolts that come with the kit are not the best. Just not really useful in an aluminium rig. So again, a minor niggle, but again something which I think is worth pointing out. So on to some positives then. What do I like about this system? Well, not really sure where to start. The obvious movement itself, its primary use, I think is excellent. Yes, I am very limited or have absolutely no experience with motion systems previously. Dan Suzuki and Race Beyond Matter have previously heralded the merits of a seat mover against the much more traditional and certainly much more expensive 6-DoF systems. If you are interested, I urge you to go and have a look at those. their YouTube channels and see what they have to say. I also believe, or Dynamic X have stated in our Discord, that they, if they haven't already, will be sending a unit to Dan Suzuki to review and give his thoughts on. I believe that is due to come out in March. It will be very interesting to have someone of his caliber kind of review it, see what he thinks, hopefully on its own merits, as well as against some of the obviously more
No, you
expensive
just
competition.
completely.
Another very positive is the noise, or certainly lack of, emitted by the device. Hopefully, you've all been made aware in the video. Um, the actual noise from the movement of the seat
Yeah, I
mover
heard that
itself
thumping and I got it.
is virtually non-existent. Um, Also, just to kind of confirm that, when I initially was testing it, I didn't have my bass shaker, which is, I have one attached to the seat, just underneath the actual seat itself. Um, Testing the haptics of the DX Winner 2, um, my wife commented that she couldn't really hear anything and wasn't actually sure if I was actually racing when I said I was. And as soon as I kind of started using the bass shaker, it became very apparent to her when I actually was. Um, so yeah, the lack of noise is a really pleasing. It just means that it's not going to add any extra to what's already in the rig. The fact that it utilizes SimHub to adjust all the motion parameters again is a great point for me personally. I use SimHub for other things, certainly Bass Shaker control. So again, it's nice not to have a separate kind of piece of software. Um, Dynamic X have actually stated that they are going to produce, I think, 3 different kind of SimHub profiles, specifically for flight, for trucks, and also for sim racing. So I guess it will be interesting to see what they come up with. But I'm sure as more people hopefully do try this, there'll be a lot more in the community as well. And finally, to the actual price of the unit, is definitely an important factor for myself. I'm sure would be for many others. I think even at the current price of just under a
I must
thousand
admit,
UK
my brother.
pounds, and just over for the equivalent in euros, it really does offer incredible value for money. I don't think I would. Well, I know I would never have even considered getting any kind of motion system before having seen the Kickstarter announcement. Yes, I'm very lucky I got it for the price I paid, although I do kind of feel if anything went majorly wrong with it and couldn't be fixed, I probably would seriously consider going out and buying a second one at the current price. And actually, just one final point on that. Yes, it's made by Chinese, as is much of current SimRig gear. It's sold and distributed in Europe and US in a lot of cases. With regards to the Dynamic X DX Winner 2 itself, they have recently stated that there is a German service centre. Whether they're going to distribute it from there as well, I'm not sure. But certainly for service and repairs, it's good to know that there's going to be a European option. And also, although I think the website still states, and certainly all the literature that comes with the device states it offers a 1 year guarantee or warranty, although Dynamics X themselves have confirmed that due to distance selling laws, it's 2 years in Europe and the same here in the UK, and they have actively
You don't want
stated
to
that they
carry
will
those
honour that
doors
if
down,
it's ever
Pablo, and let
needed.
all the pack come on through? That's fine. You keep slowing him down, Pablo.